The LA Kings look to bounce back from their worst game of the season and get a much needed win on home ice. We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the LA Kings are back at it after 4 days off, their longest layoff since the season started. It comes off the heels, unfortunately, of their worst performance of the season, a 4-2 home loss to the Philadelphia Flyers. It has been talked about a lot and will continue to be talked about until the Kings start to win more games at home. But LA just won 3-3 on home ice as we enter tonight's action. One of only two teams in the NHL currently holding down a playoff spot to have a losing record at home. The other team is Pittsburgh, the final wildcard team in the East, and they're 3-4 on home ice. Of course, the reason the Kings are still in a playoff spot, despite that not very good home record, is the fact that they're perfect on the road, 7-0, which obviously is great, but we all know LA needs to be better at home, and hopefully it starts tonight. But it won't be easy. The Kings, and you everydayers who watched Wednesday's show know this, playing yet another team that is currently holding down a playoff spot. This is their 8th home game for the Kings, taking on a Florida Panthers team that surprisingly made a run to the Stanley Cup final last year. They are in town riding a 5-game winning streak. They posted consecutive wins over the Blue Jackets, Capitals, Hurricanes, Blackhawks, and Sharks. That was a 5-3 win in their last game on Tuesday in San Jose. The Panthers are currently in second place in the Atlantic Division with 21 points, an overall record of 10-4-1. They have the third best record in the Eastern Conference and the 6th best record in the NHL. They'll be taking on an LA Kings team that has an 8-3-3 overall record, third best in the Pacific with 19 points, 5th best in the Western Conference, and 8th best in the NHL. But it is that record on home ice that is going to be the focus for the LA Kings until they start to win more games at home. If they can get a home win tonight over a very solid Florida Panthers team, that would be a great step in the right direction for the Kings. So after having the same lineup for 11 straight games and posting a record of 8-1-2 over that span, the LA Kings are changing things up slightly for a second straight game. If you are watching on YouTube, we have the projected lineups up for the Kings. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that. If you're listening, I will obviously tell you that the PL Dubois line now has Jaret Anderson-Dolan playing on the left wing along with Arthur Kaliev. Jaret Anderson-Dolan replacing Alex Laferriere, who had played in every game this season until tonight. The other change from the Flyers game remains the same. That's Kevin Fiala playing on the left side on the Danault line, with Trevor Moore on the right wing. So why this change? And we talked about it with Jesse Cohen on Wednesday's show. Alex Laferriere seems to have cooled off a bit, or perhaps, as Jesse suggested, maybe we were just kind of a bit in awe of how comfortable he looked as a total rookie, not expecting him to be in that position. And maybe since he hasn't really built on that, maybe we've got expectations a little bit higher. But regardless, there has been a change. Alex Laferriere out, and Jaret Anderson-Dolan is in to the lineup. So why did Todd McClellan decide to make this move? Well, I think it's pretty clear for two reasons. Number one, Jaret Anderson-Dolan hasn't played in 12 games, so you want to give him some ice time. Now, he did get into a few games recently down in Ontario, so he's not coming in completely cold from any kind of game action. But number two, and I think the most important reason for this change, is that Todd McClellan, coming off that game against Philadelphia, is looking for someone to come in who's probably hungry for some ice time and to give the team a bit of a spark. Here's what Todd McClellan had to say about Jaret Anderson-Dolan getting a chance to play tonight. He said, talking about Jaret Anderson-Dolan, knows who he is. He knows what he has to do to play, and he's worked really hard. He's going to get the opportunity tonight, and we're sure that he can make good on it, end quote. So, and by the way, thanks to LA Kings insider Zach Dooley for providing that quote from Todd McClellan before the game against the Florida Panthers. So what does this mean? What do the comments mean for what Todd McClellan had to say? I think it's pretty obvious. Again, looking for a hungry player, looking for more ice time to come in and set a tone. And there is the possibility of more ice time if he does what he's been asked to do, which, as Todd McClellan said, he knows what his role is. And what is that? Well, Jaret Anderson-Dolan is not a great player. He isn't highly skilled. He isn't likely to make an impact with the Kings with his shooting or his stick handling necessarily. But what can he do is what he's expected to do tonight, and that is use his speed, fly around the ice, set a tone, show how hungry he is to be in the lineup by being strong on the forecheck and making things happen. Kind of like what we saw with Quentin Byfield last season when he was put up on the top line with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. You know, those guys are going to do the scoring, but you can provide a spark. You can provide energy. Get in on the forecheck hard. Dump the puck in and chase it down. Create turnovers. Go hard to the net. That's the kind of thing that we can expect from Jaret Anderson-Dolan, and that's the kind of thing the Kings are looking for him tonight. And don't just do it on the first couple of shifts where you're obviously going to be excited and full of energy to be back on NHL ice. Do it for 3 periods. If you can do that, you can have an impact on the game and you can get more ice time. So we'll see if that's the case. I've got to believe Jaret Anderson-Dolan is, again, very hungry to get on the ice, wants to show what he can do. Be aggressive. Don't be overly aggressive. Don't take any penalties. But again, he can be a factor if he does the things he's being asked to do. Again, provide energy, get out on the forecheck, skate hard, go hard to the net, those kind of things. He's not going to be asked to go out there and score a couple of goals. He's not going to be asked to go out there and carry the puck end to end, from end to end on the ice. Go out there and provide energy. Do that. And if you add any points, hey, that's icing on the cake. But that's why Jaret Anderson-Dolan is out there for the Kings tonight. Provide more energy and do it right from the start. And hopefully that can help to set a tone for the game for the LA Kings, because that's what they need to do overall as a team as well. You everydayers heard me mention this. The Kings have only scored the first goal at home once this season. And I do actually have to correct myself. I gave out some wrong information. The one game that the Kings did score the first goal in on home ice was not against Arizona, the one team that they've beaten on home ice. Actually, it was against Vegas, and that was a game the Kings ended up losing in a shootout. But again, in the Kings' 7 home games so far, they've only scored the first goal once, and the record is 1-3-3. I don't think that's a coincidence. And again, you compare it to what they've done on the road, 7-0 away from home, and they've scored the first goal in 6 of those 7 games. The one that they didn't was against Arizona. That was October 27th, and the Kings obviously came back to win that one. So 7 road games, 6 times the Kings have scored first. They've won all those games. And the Kings, I think part of it as well is that I think they're a better team when they have the lead. And maybe you could make that argument about a lot of teams, but the Kings are very solid defensively. They're very structured. And once they get a lead, then they can kind of dictate things a little bit to the other team. On the flip side of that, it seemed certainly against the Philadelphia Flyers, they didn't get a lead. They fell behind by a few goals, and then they started to get frustrated, and then they kind of got out of what they do well. So again, get off to a good start, set the tone early for the LA Kings. If the first goal would be great. If you don't get the first goal, though, keep the energy going. And that is what we hope to see for the LA Kings tonight. And I think if they do that, that will greatly increase their chances of getting a much-needed win on home ice. Up next, we're going to talk about the goalie matchup for the LA Kings. And coming up, we'll have some keys to victory as well. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You should not have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. I don't, because I use Game Time, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I just went on vacation to New York and bought my tickets to go see a game at Madison Square Garden through Game Time, and the tickets were great. And the way I bought the tickets, super easy as well, very easy to navigate on the app. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. I love how you can see the view of your seats before you buy it, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All in prices show you the total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps of the app. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The LA Kings host the Florida Panthers tonight, 7:30 Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings on Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search LA Kings. So we have a matchup of veteran goalies tonight. Cam Talbot once again in net for the LA Kings after a nice little bit of rest for the 36-year-old. Talbot, who did not play poorly for the Kings in their last game against Philadelphia, still looking for his first home win of the season, 0-3-1 at home so far this year. Overall, Talbot 7-3-1, 923 save percentage, and a 2.21 goals against average. He'll be opposed by 35-year-old Sergei Bobrovsky, who's in his 14th NHL season. He's a former 2-time Vezina Trophy winner as the league's top goalie. That was back in his days in Columbus. He's now in his 5th season in Florida. So far this season, 12 starts, record of 8-3-1, 905 save percentage, 2.68 goals against average. On the road, Bobrovsky this season, 3-2-1. He was not in net in the Panthers' last game against the Sharks in San Jose, but he has won his last 5 starts, including a 2-0 shutout win of Detroit back on November the 2nd. As far as some players to watch for the Florida Panthers, one player that you might be a little bit surprised is off to a really good start is forward Sam Reinhart. He's a good, solid player, certainly not a superstar, but so far the numbers he's put up has him amongst the best players in the NHL statistically. He's currently 4th in the NHL with 12 goals on the season, just one off of the NHL lead. Now, his career has kind of gone to another level since he joined Florida. He played for parts of 7 seasons in Buffalo, was never a 30-goal scorer, but his last 2 seasons, both in Florida, and he has scored over 30 goals in each of those seasons, and he's certainly on pace to do that again this year. So keep an eye out for Sam Reinhart of the Florida Panthers tonight. Very hot player for them. Will be somebody the Kings will need to pay attention to. Speaking of players that get attention, both positively and negatively, Matthew Tkachuk is back in town. We remember him not so fondly from his days in Calgary with the Flames, where he had an ongoing feud with defenseman Drew Doughty. Obviously, he is now playing in Florida and playing well. He was a finalist for the MVP last year, the Hart Trophy. Didn't win the award, but had a great season and helped lead the Florida Panthers to the Stanley Cup final. This will be, I believe, his first time back in LA since an incident last November, which caused him to be suspended for 2 games. You might remember Matthew Tkachuk going to the net like he likes to do, making contact with a goaltender, which he likes to do. He loves to stir things up. But this one certainly crossed the line. If you remember, he went to the net and intentionally put his stick into the hole on the mask of then Kings goalie Jonathan Quick. Fortunately, Quick was not injured on the play. That was a dirty play, and it brought a 2-game suspension for Matthew Tkachuk from the NHL. That was crossing the line even for Matthew Tkachuk. He is definitely a guy that stirs it up. He's definitely a guy that wants to get under your skin. He will go to the net hard. He will bump a goaltender. When the ref's not looking, he might do something with his stick here and there. But he's also a very, very good player. So he has that combination of, I believe it was truculence that somebody once said back in the day about players of that ilk. He certainly has that, and he can cross the line from time to time. And for the LA Kings, the key will be when you play a guy like a Matthew Tkachuk, a Brad Marchand in Boston. You don't just let them do whatever they want. It's not like you can't retaliate if they do something over the line, but they want to get you off your game by getting you thinking about them. And that's something the Kings need to avoid. And they also want you to take penalties by retaliating against them as well. So Matthew Tkachuk, one of those players you always circle. He's going to be noticeable on the ice. And if he isn't, then that's great news for the LA Kings. So far through 15 games for Florida, Tkachuk has 3 goals, 14 assists. He's second on the team in points. And again, you could be sure he's going to do everything he can to try and be a factor in tonight's game, whether it's getting under the skin of the Kings or trying to draw penalties and things like that. And hopefully the Kings don't take any bad penalties against Matthew Tkachuk or anyone else. But if they do, the Kings penalty kill continues to be a strength. LA currently 5th in the NHL on the PK. They are killing off 87.2% of the power plays against. Unfortunately, the power play for the Kings hasn't been as good going into the game tonight. LA is 21st in the NHL with a man advantage operating at 18.6%. Florida, though, fortunately isn't much better. They're 20th in the league on the power play, 19.1%, and they're 21st in the NHL on the penalty kill. So we told you the Kings have inserted Jaret Anderson-Dolan into the lineup. LA did make another roster move, but this player will not be on the ice tonight. That is defenseman Jacob Moverari. He was recalled by the Kings from Ontario, but he's going to be a healthy scratch for tonight's game. The defensive lineup for the Kings will remain the same for the 13th straight game. Drew Doughty, Mikey Anderson, Matt Roy, Vladislav Gavrikov. We have Jordan Spence and why am I blanking on his first name? England. Wow, that's ridiculous. However, if the Kings do follow the same Andreas England, if the Kings do follow the same pattern that we saw with Jaret Anderson-Dolan, then we may see a defensive change here in the near future. So defenseman Tobias Bjornfot, you might be wondering what happened to him. They sent him to Ontario, but he did not have to go through waivers because the Kings use the NHL rules, which allow them to send a player down to the AHL for a conditioning assignment, which I believe can be a maximum of 5 games. You might remember the Kings did this last season with Brant Clark to try and squeeze as many games out of him as they could at the pro level before sending him back to his junior team. So Bjornfot has only played 1 game this season for the Kings. It was the season opener against Colorado. He has sat every other game because of Andreas England playing very well. So the Kings have sent Bjornfot down to Ontario to get him some game action. And if they follow the pattern of what they did with Jaret Anderson-Dolan, then they would probably recall Bjornfot after that conditioning stint. And well, not probably, they will. And then maybe use that conditioning stint to kind of get him some game action and put him into the lineup for a game or two, or just give him an opportunity like they're doing with Jaret Anderson-Dolan. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward here with the LA Kings and Tobias Bjornfot. So what are the keys for the Kings to get a big home win tonight? We will talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action than now. As much as we love betting on the NFL, you can certainly bet on the NHL as well. If you want to place a bet on our Kings to win tonight against the Florida Panthers, FanDuel has the Kings at favorites. They are giving 1.5 goals in this one. If you think the over-under is going to be more or less than 6.5 goals, you could certainly place a bet on that as well. Just use the FanDuel app, which is super easy to use. There is a wide range of betting options, as we pointed out, point spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNHL, and you can bet on the NHL and the NFL all season long. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, it feels like a big game tonight for the LA Kings. Now, the opponent isn't as sexy as a game against the Vegas Golden Knights, for example, but considering how LA played against Philadelphia in their last game, the fact they've had 4 days off to kind of stew on that poor performance, the fact they've had 4 days of practice time to implement some of the changes they've made, the fact the Kings have struggled at home, and people are not talking about that. And the fact that they're playing a good team on a hot streak, all of that to me factors into this being a big game for the LA Kings. So what are the keys for the Kings tonight? Well, I think the first one is pretty obvious. We've kind of hammered this into the ground a bit. Get off to a good start, and if possible, get the first goal. But I think more importantly, set the tone early, dictate the pace, get in on the forecheck, create some turnovers, get the Panthers on their heels, keep them in their own end, roll all four lines, which has been such a strength of the Kings all season long, and keep the pressure on for 3 periods. We want to get off to a good start, but it's not just about starting good, it's having a good start carry over for all 3 periods. I think the next key for the Kings is bring the energy and have all 4 lines contribute. Let's see Jaret Anderson-Dolan provide that energy while he's in the lineup. Let's see Blake Lizotte continue to be a spark plug. Let's see Kevin Fiala, now that he's had some practice time with a new line, be a factor and get a goal. Let's see P.L. Dubois drive the play. Let's see Quentin Byfield continue his good play of late. The Kings' depth has been their biggest strength all season long. Let's have that be a factor tonight by having 4 lines contributing and everybody carrying their own weight. And I think the third key for the Kings, win the special teams battle. Florida does not have great special teams. And while LA's power play hasn't been great either, they've got too much talent on that power play for it not to be a factor. 1 power play goal against a good team in what is probably going to be a tight game could be the difference. Let's see Adrian Kempe and Arthur Kaliyev set up on the wing and fire those one-timers. Let's see Drew Doughty and Jordan Spence fire away from the blue line. And let's see guys like Trevor Moore and Carl Grundstrom be hungry around the net. So again, the 3 keys for the Kings tonight, in my opinion, get off to a good start, bring the energy, have all 4 lines roll and contribute, and win the special teams battle. I said it, big game tonight. At the very least, we need to see a big effort for the LA Kings. And if they do happen to come up short, it was because they were beaten by a better team, not because they didn't play the way they should play. I've talked about it before. The standard should be the standard for the Kings. They got to bring it every night, rolling those 4 lines, everybody playing at a high level, bringing the energy and not getting frustrated if they fall behind. LA Kings host the Florida Panthers tonight, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of the LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. So again, looking forward to a big game tonight and looking forward to hopefully recapping on tomorrow's show a big win by the LA Kings. For you everydayers, you know that Fridays are always big days on Locked On LA Kings. Not only do we have a game to recap, but we also have a Friday Kings fan feedback show. Your questions, your comments on anything going on with the LA Kings are certainly welcome. You can send an email. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And as always, you can leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section below. We would love for you to stay interactive with the show by following us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. And by the way, if you haven't noticed it, now maybe you're someone who stops the show before it's over. Hopefully you don't do that. And here's a reason why. Now, after this episode ends, you should be automatically redirected to Locked On Los Angeles. It is a 24/7 channel devoted to all of the teams in LA, Kings, Lakers, Clippers, Dodgers, as well as USC and UCLA. It's something that was launched a few weeks ago. And if you haven't checked it out, please give it a look. And like I said, hopefully you don't have to do anything. Once this episode ends, it should automatically redirect you there if things are going right. But again, Locked On Los Angeles, something that hopefully you'll be interested in checking out. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you on Friday, hopefully after a big Kings win. And as always, go Kings, go.